Welcome on the first episode of season 3 of the Fall Guys podcast. We talked to Coach Toby Golembiewski from Monroe, the Division III state champions. Coach, tell us about your football journey. How'd you find yourself at Monroe?
Well, it's been quite a deal. I would say after attending Platteville and playing football there, it was time to go out and look for a teaching job. And one of the first ones I had discovered was in Orangeville, Illinois, which is not far from here, just below the border. And I thought, a little school, maybe get my foot in the door, stay a little while, and look for something bigger. And we had quite a bit of success, and ended up staying there and coaching for 16 years. And then when I had children, my oldest son Max, when he was kind of old enough to be involved in youth football, we lived in the Monroe district. They're adjoining. Yeah, so we had always lived in the Monroe district while I was coaching down in Orangeville. And, it was just going to be a time where our kids were going to be involved in after school stuff and different things. And I decided to step down from the position at Orangeville and help coach Max's youth team when he started playing football in fourth grade. So that went for a few years, and then Coach Miller ended up stepping down, and the job was open, and I had a decision to make. Was I going to put in for this, or was I going to be that guy that stood in the stands thinking he knew more than the guy who was out there and being frustrated all the time? So I gave it a shot, and I ended up getting the job here. I still teach in Orangeville. I just drive up to coach. There's some retirement issues in swapping states and that. So I ended up just that's where we're at right now. So that's been since 2016.
Coach, throughout your journey, who were your mentors along the way? You mentioned starting out at UW-Platteville. Or who kind of gave you that first big break into coaching?
Well, this question, when I looked at it, this could take up the whole time when you really go back into it. So my father is a Hall of Fame coach, and coached at UW-Milwaukee, coached at West Division and Marshall. And so I've lived in that house with him the whole time. There's been a lot of opportunities that I've had through high school, playing for a lot of great coaches, one of them being Tom Taraska. Through him and his staffs that he had, and some of my teachers during that time, I really started thinking the direction of coaching. Some of Tom's assistants were Tim O'Driscoll, who was a very successful baseball coach. He was one of my youth baseball coaches, and I really kind of got the idea of, this being, pretty fun situation. Then, of course, going to Platteville and playing there, became pretty close, and then stayed on and coached after my playing time was over, staying and playing with guys like George Christ, Jim Kinder, John Dixon, and Lance Taylor, and a number of other guys. I got an opportunity to stay on and grad assistant for a year, and then I got then I was a student assistant, and then I was the actual offensive line coach the year that George passed away. So I ended up being there for 5 years, and that gave me a lot of good experience. I also I took a stint over in Stockholm, Sweden, coached the Arlanda Jets, and just building up a lot of interpersonal relationships with different coaches and things, and knowing people and being comfortable doing this job really helped out. I even go back to back before we could have our own football camps and everyone went to the Whitewater General Camp. as a high schooler going there and with Coach Peterson and Coach Brezowitz and all the different guys that they had on the general camp staff. And then through a lot of my time, even at Orangeville, I was back working those camps, with Stan Zwiefel and Coach Brezowitz and Pat Crowley and John Sterner and there's just, I was going over this list of people with my wife, and she said, it's just hundreds of guys that have all linked into this and have been a part of this journey, and every one of them that has reached out as a result of our success this year, I have to remind them that in one way, shape, or form, whether it was just drawing up schemes over a napkin or talking about how you handled kids in certain situations, every one of those guys and more have been a part of this. Had been a part of this journey as a culmination of really all of that coming together to end up with where I'm at right now.
Coach, you've rattled off pretty much a who's who list there of icons in football in South Central Wisconsin or Southern Wisconsin. I'm curious a little bit about how you made it over to Stockholm for a year. I think you're maybe the third guest we've had that has some international experience. And I'm curious how you came into that opportunity.
Okay, so about midway through my time coaching at Platteville, we had an All-American defensive back by the name of Barry Bagans. We from Wausau. We were the same age, but he didn't redshirt, so he got done earlier, and of course he had tried out. I believe at the time, there was still like the World League and some of these other different leagues that were going on during that time. And Barry ended up going there and coaching a season. And when he came back, he says, "Hey, I talked to these guys. You got to come over with me and you got to put in the wing tee. These guys over there are not going to know how to deal with this." They were still just a few years new to the game itself. And and Barry was working for Texas Instruments, which had a place in Stockholm to kind of keep up with Ericsson, who was a big cell phone deal at the time. So I was going to go over there as his assistant, and right at the last second, he got shipped back to Texas with Texas Instruments. So I ended up taking a guy by the name of Mark Lenhair, a linebacker coach at Platteville who played at Platteville. He came over as my defensive coordinator, and we had a pretty good time with it. And it's kind of funny because his son played for Logan. No, Aquinas. His son played for Aquinas. They ended up winning. We ended up winning. And Glenn Derby is an assistant coach at Kettle Moraine. And the three of us who were living in the same house at the same time during this time, and somehow on the same weekend, we all end up at Camp Randall and win games. So it was really kind of something when you look back at that little thing. But the foreign experience was pretty good. We took some lumps. You got to coach people with pretty good intelligence, but had never played the game before, and you really had to coach, and teach them what was going on.
Coach, that's an awesome story. Just how, kind of I wouldn't call it fate, but just the coincidence of three guys who lived together, all winning state championships on the same 24-hour stretch, basically.
Yeah. And we all kind of bumped into each other at the same time. It was really something.
That's got to be something that you guys will share a couple of beverages and reminisce, especially coming up at the clinic here in April, and just looking back on those. And that's kind of what we wanted this podcast to be about. And we started it was, those conversations you're going to have at the high tops at the hotel during the clinic, and those stories that the rest of the state needs to hear. And Coach, getting into your season a little bit this year, you guys set the record for most rushing yards in a season in state history, which as the game has evolved, we've seen it kind of become more of a pass heavy game, or not necessarily pass heavy, but it's gotten to be more of a game where the ball's in the air a little bit more. And you guys are almost offended by the forward pass. But how do you sell that offense to kids, to community, when it's not something they see all the time? I get that winning helps, right? But you didn't walk in and win it. You didn't walk in and win a state championship. At first, when you get there, you kind of got to sell it to them of, hey, trust the process. How do you do that?
Well, we're pretty fortunate in that Monroe has had quite a bit of success in the 80s. And while they did throw, they were primarily a running team based off of hard-nosed running and blocking and good defense. So the parents of these kids, understood what took them to what did they go to five trips and win three, or no, wait, they went, geez, now I'm all screwed up here. I think they went 8 times and won 5 of them or something like that. No, there's only 6 total right now. So they won 5, went 8 times. I don't know how I messed that up, but so they kind of understand the brand of football that has won in the past. I think when you look at, I wouldn't say that we're offended by that, because I remember the year before COVID, there was a great matchup with a 2 seed and a 7 seed. I think it was Add-on Alaska. And I think we had two touchdown passes during that game. And then I think 2 weeks later, we went down to DeForest, and I think we might have had a touchdown pass in that game too. So we really like to use it when it's best used. It's not that we are against it. I really think we probably could have been closer to that record a couple of other times. You need to play a lot of games to get that record, for one. You're not going to do that in 9 games. I mean, that would be absolutely incredible to do that in 9 games. But I'm going to give you my take on it. Some people are going to disagree, but I look at high school football very differently than what you see on TV on Saturday and Sunday. Okay, you got 12-minute quarters. The geometry of the field is different. The hash marks are different. And I think when people jump to be trendy, when that school board president wants his son to look like the guy on Sunday and pressures the coaches into running more of a modern offense, or whatever the opinion of the average Joe that just wants to show up for their own entertainment and not be concerned about the team winning, and not taking into account some very different things about Friday football compared to Saturday and Sunday. It's kind of like, to me, a basketball team that comes down and shoots a 3 on the first pass, or maybe without even a pass, and another team that uses the whole shot clock and works for the best shot, works to get it in the paint. Running the ball consistently and preparing to be good at it, I think it not just scores points and gets yards, it exacts a toll. There is a toll that is taken over time. And in football, it might be more of a physical toll and a timing toll, because you're taking away possession time and plays from a team that needs more plays and more possessions to keep up with the percentage of completing a long pass versus getting 4 yards on a running play. Just like a 3-point shooter versus a layup shooter. Now, you could take a college basketball game and you could take 2 very different styles and match them up. And you look at the halftime scoreboard, and the slowdown teams got 50 points and the speed up teams got 60 points. But because of the toll that they exacted on the other team, one team's got 3 players in foul trouble and all their big men in foul trouble because the ball's been put in the paint, and that is going to add up in the second half. That is going to be a problem that is not necessarily a scoring issue, but it's going to be a scoring issue in the second half. And you'd say, you look at that score 50-60, and then you look at the number of fouls. And if everyone's good at shooting, you got to be good at it. You got to make your free throws. But you would look at that and say, who's winning? And you'd say, well, the team with 60's winning. And say, are they really winning? Are they really winning when two of their starters are going to come out on the bench because they got 3 fouls? So I mean, and for us, we found that in the second half, the physical toll, the mental toll that we could enact on a team by you got to be good at it. But what we could do to another team's psyche, and I think there were teams that did not want to play. If we said, hey, come on, let's just for fun, let's play a 5th quarter. I think there were a lot of teams that would not want to have done that with these guys. But that takes a commitment. You can't spend half your time running routes and working on offensive pass pro. You need to dedicate your time to your lifting, your blocking, your tackling, your scheme, and your use of scheme in those times to make yourself the most efficient as possible. None of this matters if you can't play defense. I get in these arguments with people, spread versus 3-back. Oh, the spread would be the 3-back. Well, I've never seen 2 balls on the field where they lined up a spread offensive team against a 3-back team and they went against each other. They don't play against each other. Okay, so you have to defend. If you can't defend and you're unsound on special teams, you're not going to beat anybody, no matter what you run. Okay, but another thing too about the geometry of the game. We had a pretty good kicker this year. We're 700 kids school. We get 70 guys out for football. Maybe Arrowhead has a kid who can kick a 50-yarder every year. Maybe the D1 schools do. So I'm not saying that this is a blanket statement, but when a Saturday team comes down, I don't particularly think. I know they're getting better, but I don't particularly think the non-running teams are very effective in the red zone. So you cannot come away with no points. You have to end up having someone who can finishes with a kick. And if you don't have a kicker and you're just gonna come up with nothing, you haven't really given yourself a chance. Also, it was 19 degrees at the beginning of that game. Even our guy completed a couple passes, said he couldn't feel his hands. West Salem, I know the kid had trouble handling the ball. And I think it just, I was kind of caught up in our stuff this year, but I know last year it's true. Just look at the number of 3-back teams that show up in Camp Randall every year and win. Because when you want to go as far as you want to go in Wisconsin, in the Northern Hemisphere, you better be able to run a system that you can operate in those conditions, or you're just going to have a great fun time patting everybody on the back, having all these yards and catching and looking all exciting, and then you're going to go home with nothing because you couldn't deal with your offense couldn't deal with the wind. Your offense couldn't deal with the cold. So, what the hell do I know? But that's just my take on it. And I think to try to make it seem like Saturday and Sunday are the same as Friday is a huge mistake. And we do a good job telling our kids, this is why we do what we do. This is why you're going to get better. And this is why it's going to take 9 of you on a play to be successful. We're not going to have a couple of receivers running routes downfield. Everyone's got a block. Everyone's got a job. Everyone's got to be physical. And it's because of that you're going to have some success. Now, like I said, what the hell do I know? We went to state one time, but we've had a pretty good run here for the last few years on top of things, but sometimes it's not really the offense that's the issue.
Now, Coach, I'm going to defend that 2019. One of those passes was thrown into the middle of about 7 guys, and somehow your kid found a way to come away with that one. And that was the game winner. That was a heartbreaker that night.
Yeah, that was a heck of a play. That was one of my most fun games to believe that I was a part of. That was a lot of crazy things happened that night.
Coach,
like we couldn't defend you.
We had the ball one snap in the first quarter. Snap.
We might have had 400 yards rushing in that game, but we also probably gave up at least that much. And that's why it was a one point game at the end. But like I said, if you can't, before you argue about offenses, if you don't play defense, it doesn't matter. So
you guys had 311 yards rushing, 99 pass. We had 390 pass and 121 rush. And yeah, it was crazy. I remember that night. Who taught you the wing T, Coach? Because when somebody asks me and they say who there's somebody will put it out there and they say, I'm looking to learn some stuff about the wing T. And I always say, talk to Monroe, Wisconsin. I said, those guys are the best that I have seen. So you talk to Monroe or you talk to Muskego, but if you want like 2 guys in the backfield, wing T, kind of like you guys are, Muskego's more of a double tight all the time with actual double wings all the time, but still running a wing T. But I said, if you want the 2 guys in the backfield version of the wing T, Monroe, Wisconsin is where to go. Who taught you that offense?
So miraculously enough, this was what Tom Taraska ran when he came from Franklin and took the job at Arrowhead. So, my freshman coaches at Arrowhead started it off, then through 4 years of him. And when I went to Platteville in 1986, George Christ was running the wing T. And I have never run another offense since 1982 or whatever it was. And so it's the only thing. I would say there's been some modifications, some evolution. I have this. So Coach Chris passed away when we were there, and Coach Dixon, who ended up going on up to Manitowoc, he had a successful season, and then he passed away suddenly after a season. But so he was my offensive line coach, and I worked with him when he was the offensive coordinator, when I was the offensive line coach. And I will tell, it's kind of weird, but most of us are dead. But when I get in touch with like Lance Taylor or some of the other guys that were on that staff, I tell them I have this recurring dream that I'm sitting there talking to George and John about all the shit we should have been doing, all the things that we could have done to attack some of these fronts. There's a guy named Rick Stewart, he has a lot of stuff on the internet, does a lot of wing T stuff, and you pick up stuff off of YouTube and different things and your own experimentation. And it's so intuitively obvious right now. And then had we known, so like the jet series had not really been invented then. And I think that kind of maybe revived the wing T from going from, wing far, just the basic 100 and 900, because it's pretty easy to dissect if there isn't some extra movement or some added blocking pressures. And down kick out only gets you so far, and the jet action gives you more of a zone look, or it kind of changes up from how you would prepare for this type of thing. The West Coast offense with the 49ers. Just it matches the wing tee perfectly formation wise and route wise. There's a lot of things you can do out of that under center. I haven't really made the commitment to go into even shotgun wing tee because I think now you're practicing and doing something extra and different that's going to take up valuable practice time. And, maybe Arrowhead or, someone can do that, but our guys still have to play defense and special teams. So we're getting a third of the practice time. And probably you guys too, I'm assuming your numbers got to be pretty close where, you don't practice offense for 2.5 hours. They got to go get their other positions taken care of too. So understanding those time limitations and what you're able to accomplish effectively to create the retention for your players to go out there and make sure they're going to do it right the first time is really important. And you know what, to go back with the passing thing. So we get a lot of throws in our scout when our guys are on scout team, and typically our quarterback is not a defensive player. So he gets some arm work in when he's on the demonstration team for the other team. But I watched some of the things that we can do practice wise with just a straight running game and the amount of reps. And I'd like to learn maybe sometime how you guys have overcome this, but it just seems like we can rep running plays like 4-1 compared to the pass plays that we do in scout. We don't even need to use a ball sometimes. It seems like when we're running scout team, all right, there's a play downfield, guy doesn't catch it, ball rolls 15 yards, someone's got to go get it. Everyone's got to run back to the huddle, get lined back up again. We could have ran 4 more plays in our offensive team or group during that time, and we just don't have the time to invest in chasing a ball over the field while we're getting ready. We find what we can do good, find what we want to do good, do it as fast as we can, and build up as many guys' retention to it so we can execute it on the field.
Coach, that's a great point. In terms of, I guess anytime that I'm over at inside run, we're definitely rattling plays off way faster than we are over at 7-on-7. I think, Coach Yash and I, we're a little bit different. We use some technology to help us out. We use Go Route to help us get some reps going on that side of the ball and to have 4 more guys ready to go, 4 more receivers ready to jump right in there. But I understand exactly what you're talking about. I just wanted to go back to something quick. You said something to me that stuck out. I was just listening to a podcast yesterday, the day before, and when you've been doing the same thing since '82, you can really, really get some penetration and some depth into what it is that you're doing, right? And layers upon layers of adding shifts, adding motions that you guys do so well. If you're hopping in and out of offenses every 2 or 3 years just to run whatever is popular, how can you ever truly master something like that, right?
And some guys get one guy hurt and they do it 2 or 3 times in a season. That's the beginning of the end. That's the beginning of the end when you're doing that. There's no way I feel, and we had a pretty smart team this year. We had a lot of academic all-staters in our seniors, and but they're not always smart. And, we just try to cater to making sure they feel comfortable doing what they're doing and let the other team make the mistake.
So speaking of that group that you had this year, obviously super special season with a state championship. At what point in the year did you know that this had the chance to be something special?
All right, so I'm even going to walk that back a little more. So we go 5-0 in the COVID spring, and a lot of these seniors played on that team. And then we came out in the next regular fall season, and we saw how these guys developed from sophomores to juniors. And we lost a few good players. We lost a Badger in Seagreaves. We lost, there was guys Max's age that we valued very heavily, but we had this nucleus of guys. And I really think there is something special about that spring season. When we came out for summer camp, it was as if we hadn't even skipped a beat. It was like there wasn't even a break in practice. There was no reinstalling of anything. We were on the go from the start. There was just a little bit of enough time and rest in between, but yet between their ability to retain and the amount of time that passed by, we kept going like we never stopped. And at that point, we knew we really had something going on. We had to adjust a couple times. We had a younger quarterback coming in, and what we were going to do with the Seagreaves kid. In that year, we moved him to running back, and he did a great job. But we knew way before this season that if you always have these thoughts, and then 3 guys get injured, and then it all goes downhill. We knew things were going to be good as long as we were able to stay healthy and keep going through this. Matter of fact, we had, I think one of the other questions coming up is advice to younger coaches. We planned to go to Camp Randall in August. We even practice planned it. And we look at our summer strength and conditioning, and I think it's maybe a 6 or 8 week class that we run, and we got some guys make some pretty good gains during that time. Well, from that first day of 2-a-days, that's 14 plus a scrimmage, 15, and 2 others, 17 weeks that we can double our strength and conditioning in that time. Now, just imagine after a 17-week lifting plan, or a team who just accidentally made it and was just doing, maintenance work, or let the kids lift on their own during the season, or, maybe letting that slide. You're going to get your ass kicked by the team that's been lifting like they already know they're going to Camp Randall. And, we put that in their head. I told the parents at the meeting, I might write a book someday. It's going to be called The Inconvenience of Winning. Monroe hadn't been in the playoffs for a number of years before I got here. And we found out right away that, people just looked at the schedule and they figured, okay, so November, well, we'll schedule this trip, or we can go to Aunt Myrtle's birthday party, or we'll have this stuff lined up. And, well, he's only a sophomore. He's not going to be doing this. And I told him, do not plan on anything until Thanksgiving. Your kids are going to, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Have your kids plan. Do not plan some trip. Do not come up and tell me he's got to miss because he's going bear hunting or something. If you are in on this, get ready to play football until Thanksgiving. And I think planning for it, preparing for it, and being ready is a huge thing. But we knew we had something pretty good. I would say our transition to the Rock Valley was I'm not going to say it was not in our favor. We're not the biggest school in that grouping, but we definitely, I would say, had the upper hand, or a chance to earn the upper hand. And that's a little different than, opening up against Wanakee and DeForest for your first 2 non-cons, and then, going and playing MG and Oregon and getting into the playoffs with 4 wins, or, going through that level rather than, coming out with some good wins and a lot of excitement to keep everything going. I'd say we've been very fortunate along that lines. That has been very helpful. We're still going to have to earn that. We got a lot of guys graduating, and leaving this year. That's something we're going to have to still maintain. But coming off of pretty much a pretty good chance of getting your head pounded in half the time in the Badger South to now you got a shot to win, started a lot of excitement here too.
Coach, the game of football, you talked about a lot of the lessons in terms of, or a lot of the successes you guys had on the field. But what about some of the lessons that you believe the game teaches off the field? I think that there's so much that this game can teach young men and teach ourselves off the field that we maybe don't always think about in the moment, but maybe reflect back on. What are some of those things that the game has taught you that you hope to teach your players throughout the years?
Well, a couple pillars that we try to pass on to our guys. A lot of this, you watch this guy, you go to a clinic there, you hear this and that. I don't know who I got it from or heard it from or even thought of myself, maybe all that. But I think one of our number one, couple of our number one things are, you got to show up. You got to show up, and you got to show up to weights. You got to show up to practice. There was a problem with kids, like feeling sick 7th hour and going home, and then missing a practice with the expectation that they would still probably play on Friday. Before I was here, there was a little bit of a culture that had to be rolled over as far as that goes. And it all just kind of comes down to, there was that Navy SEAL who wrote that book about how do you expect to change the world if you can't even make your own bed in the morning. And we transfer that to probably some coach speak of, winning the day. Some stuff's going to go wrong, and your day's not going to be good. Someone's going to have to stay after school. Something's going to happen. Someone's going to get sick. We're going to have to work a backup. How did we find a way to still win that day? And I truly believe if you don't win more of the days from Sunday to Thursday, there's no way you're going to show up on Friday and win. The other team has worked too hard. There are too many factors against you to think that you are going to be able to mentally pull that off. And it could be something as simple as we're pulling up to Whitewater and I hear a little bit of a buzz in the back of the bus. And finally, some kid has enough courage to come up and say, hey, Logan forgot his shoes, and then of course I lose my shit and we get it figured out. But, what were you thinking about? What the hell were you thinking about when you were prepping yourself that day with your equipment bag that you didn't put your shoes in there? And how are you going to go out and beat this kid from Whitewater, for 4 quarters if you can't even remember to bring your own damn shoes? So it's, it could be just little things like that. It could be getting in trouble with a teacher. It could be, stuff like that. And I think that that was one of the things that, so we had rings made and they asked the kids what they wanted to put on the rings. And Win the Day was one of them. And the guy who made the rings did a great job. He said, you're going to put stuff on here because 30 years from now, your grandkid's going to want to look at your ring and he's going to read these things and he's going to say, what does that mean? What does that mean? What did that mean, Grandpa? What does Win the Day mean? And then you would tell them that story, hopefully pass that on to someone else. But I really look at people, that can't remember to bring their shoes. They're expected to go out and win a football game. It just blows my mind. So just those types of things, I think we have really passed it. Just personal responsibility issues and things like that.
Coach, those are great messages, and it is sometimes just the simplest things that we need to be focused on in our day-to-day preparation, right? I like how you summarize that with winning Sunday through Thursday. Otherwise, there's no chance of winning it on Friday.
You better win more of those days, or there's no way you're going to win it Friday. No way.
Yeah. Coach, what would you say is your greatest football memory that has nothing to do with wins or losses?
Oh man. I would have to say we took a trip. We took a trip my junior year out to Wagner College, the UW Platteville football team. Coach Chris was a master of teaching us. We weren't in the national. We weren't going to be in the tournament. We were, just competed in the WSUC, and he had a great just message about football and life. And he would have some of these trips that we would go on, and one of them was to go play Wagner out in Staten Island, New York. And we left on a Tuesday night and came back on a Sunday to play a Saturday football game. And there were multiple stops and things. I believe we were the first team to eat as a team in the downtown athletic club. I think Michigan was supposed to that year, but you remember when they used to have like those overseas games? I think they were involved in something like that, so they didn't come in for that obligation. We toured Manhattan. We played the game and won, which I guess did have something to do with wins and losses. Was second half comeback win where we wing-teed them to death in the second half. But then half the team one of the group decided to go to a Broadway musical, and then a bunch of us decided to go to a Knicks game. And so we were out in New York City, and we just had a blast. I know we ended up winning, but that was one of the greatest trips. And I know that's pretty hard to duplicate at the high school level, but I always try to find a way to, teach a little history, learn some non-football things, different things like that, like Coach Chris used to do for us.
Coach, what was you guys have been in this, or you've been in the state, I should say, for about 7 years now at Monroe. What team, coach, coordinator has been the most fun to play against? I know you've kind of bounced up against some different conferences here and there, so maybe you haven't had a super consistent, but maybe it's been in the playoffs. What's that team or that coach that you see on a regular basis that's just you look forward to, or maybe just the biggest challenge?
I think Coach Frisky and all the wing T guys. If you want to learn how to defend this offense, you need to run it yourself. You need to actually run it. You'll get the most repetitions against it. And I think that the teams, that the 3-back teams, like Reedsburg, Oregon, and Pewaukee, you kind of know how they're thinking. You kind of know that they know what you know, and you know what they know. And you want to win, but you don't want to get anything on film to teach anyone else, so everybody else knows what you know. But I would say the 3-back teams have been the most fun to coach against. Plus, they're the most physical practices too. And I kind of understand, if you play in a conference that doesn't have any 3-back attack teams, there's kids in your team that probably get pretty used to, a 7-on-7 practice every day. And it's hard to get those kids to refocus to a 3-back practice. Your demonstration teams don't always understand how to do that, or to what level to do it at. And it's just a fun football, physical experience when you're playing against a 3-back team.
Coach, I got to be honest with you here. When the playoff brackets came out, other than seeing where we were seated at for DeForest, the next thing I did was go look at where Yash was at because we're buddies, right? And then I saw Monroe Pewaukee potential meeting early on, and man, I thought to myself that should have come a little bit later in the bracket, but I know it was a highly anticipated matchup, and not surprised that you referenced Coach Frisky here, but yeah, I thought that was between the three of you guys, you probably had three of the best teams in Division III this year. So,
And the
Well,
first
thanks.
thing, the first thing I did when I got home was, I think that was level 2, right? And I had said when the playoffs came out, I said, "There's your state championship game right there." I said, "Whoever wins that game," I was pretty sure, and I had said earlier, I said in July, I had said Monroe will be at state. I was pretty sure of that. But then when those brackets came out and we saw how well Pewaukee had played versus Catholic Memorial and Brookfield Central and whatnot, I said, "There's your state championship game." So I got home from our game, and the first thing I did was jump on YouTube and watch the ending of it because I had heard via Twitter how crazy that ending was. So that had to have been quite the roller coaster as well.
Well, yeah, and that goes back to
again with the pass, right? You won it with the pass.
That goes back to 2016. We were 11-1, and we lost to them in level 3, and we got our really good running back hurt broke his leg on the very first play of the game. We still ended up only about a yard short as time ran out in that game. And then, of course, heartbreaking loss at Muskego in the neutral site game last year. And we were getting all of our guys back. I know they were getting guys back, but we really had a good opportunity to learn. We learned a lot of things that we did offensively this year stemmed off of some of the glaring things that we probably should have taken care of better in that semifinal game against Pewaukee. And Pewaukee was referenced throughout the year. So, we were winning 14-0. We lose 28-14. We get 2 punts blocked. We get a pass interference on a fake punt, and we rough the punter one time. So four different plays having to do with punt and special teams. And we made that a point every single day. We were doing a special teams to drive that home. Do you want to end up in the same place again, or do you want to make a difference? And because you're going to be playing them. If you think you're going to go where you're going to go, you're going to play them. I guarantee it. And we made sure of it. And I believe they had a bad snap or two. I believe we might have had the upper hand on the special teams situation, while it not have been as glaring as it was the year before. But yeah, but then again, like you said with the pass, we almost died by it because the go ahead touchdown was a sack, scoop, fumble score, and then when we got the ball back, we got a unfortunate penalty from them. Gave us a little bit more field position and completed a couple of passes, and of course a great pass at the end to put the last touchdown in. So you don't have to work on it a lot. You just have to work on it enough and use it in the right situation. And I think not that it's funny that you said that about the passing, and I do enjoy running. I was a guard myself. I would rather the outcome of the play didn't affect me as much as on any given snap, 11 guys have a chance to kick another 11 guys' ass. And I think if you take that into account on every play, you're gonna end up having success. The running back's gonna find a way to run with the ball, but that's football. It's not standing around clapping and putting your number one finger up in the air and running down and yelling and screaming and watching one guy run in the end zone. It's 11 guys laying on their back. And You'd like to have that all the time. But they were tough. You want to stop an old offense, get an old guy. Their defensive coordinator is like 80 years old. He did a great job in both in all those games. So we didn't count any chickens before they were hatched. We expect things to get tougher as they went on, but we knew that they were definitely a formidable opponent.
Yeah. All right, Coach, shifting gears a little bit here. If Yash and I are coming down to Monroe for, I don't know, whatever reason, what place in town do we need to stop at to get something to eat and have a beverage?
All right, there are very many of them, but I think the first one you would be sent to is on the square. We have a little courthouse in the middle of town, and there's a square around the outside of it. It has a number of places, but one of the most historic places is called Baumgartner's. And you'll go in there, and while they have upgraded their menu a little bit, basically features a number of tap beers and cheese sandwiches. And the front of it is a deli, and the back of it is a bar where you can get cheese or cheese and sausage sandwiches. You can get Limburger cheese there if you like that or want to try that. And I would say, while they're not to slight any of the other places, I would say most locals would direct you to that place for your first one. We kind of made it our after Thursday practice. I think maybe a few weeks going into the playoffs, it was mandatory that we all went down there and got soup and a sandwich and had dinner together before we put everything away for the game on Friday. Baumgartner's.
If I'm ever in Monroe, I don't know how. I'll be honest, I don't even know how to get to Monroe. I know it's in the southeastern portion,
Yep.
but if I'm ever there, it's on the it's on the list.
Actually, it's probably less east than you think. It's a little bit more straight south of Madison. So
Gotcha.
It would be straight south.
Well, if I'm driving down,
maybe you should go down there and play them.
Hey, yeah. Non-conference, I don't care. Let's play. I'm not afraid. We'll play non-conference.
We got some stuff lined up, but down the road, we'll have to do something.
It'll be a couple of years because I know we're locked in with West Salem and Medford for the next couple. But there's no reason to go to go find out how good you are early in the season, right?
Right.
Coach, final question tonight, and we appreciate you coming on and taking your time. What's one piece of advice you have for the coaches out there that want to be where you are, want to take over a program and whatnot?
Well, you got to be yourself. You got to be true to yourself. You got to really take care of the interpersonal relationships with you and your staff and your family. They need to be taken care of too. So we've had a couple of long seasons here, and I'm from a football family, but not all my assistants, families, wives and whatnot are that locked into it. But, you got to make sure that you're still just coaching high school football and you're getting paid $4,000 or something to do it. It's not $1 million contract or anything. And take care of the people that you're working with and maintain those relationships with it was amazing the amount of Orangeville kids and Orangeville people that showed up to the state championship game. And I had been out of there a number of years, but there was many of my players from the previous school came to watch that game and support, reached out, and we're happy. I mean, that school had 100 kids in it when I was coaching there. If you can imagine the ups and downs of an 11-man football team. And it was the smallest school in the state of Illinois that had 11-man football for a number of years when I was there. And we still kind of kept our heads above water. But, you build those relationships go learn as much as you can. Sometimes the younger you are, or whatever age you are, as soon as you think that you know everything, you actually know nothing. And don't be afraid to listen to other people and ask questions. And get on the computer and go to clinics and talk to people and be open and be true to yourself. Those are just some of my biggest things.
Coach, that's great advice. I think one of the things that I've had the experience to do, and I was trying to find a way to work this in. Yash has done it too. I was fortunate enough to go be a part of the All-Star game a couple of years ago and got to learn a lot of football from a lot of different coaches there. Some great coaches. Got to coach your son, Max. It was a great experience. I was thankful to have that. I still keep in touch with him. He and I text back and forth, and he was probably the first guy that I text to let know you were coming on the podcast.
Yeah, he said.
Yeah, I think the other thing I wanted to call out, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention. I know that you mentioned your father earlier as a mentor and things like that, as a Hall of Fame coach. I know he's done a lot for that game and for Children's Wisconsin over the years, and so I just want to make sure that we recognize his generosity and all of your family's generosity for everything that you've done for that game and that experience. So I just want to personally thank you for that and say congratulations again on winning the gold ball this year.
Well, thanks, Coach. I have been very fortunate in this profession to have brought up and been around a support system like that, especially with my mother and father's participation in those different things, and my son also being involved. And I would give a shout out to all the guys at Loris that are probably going to tune in and listen. And I agree with you on that All-Star game. I had an opportunity to do that a few years before you guys did, and it was an absolutely eye-opening experience with the children's group and dealing with a elite group of hand-picked young men, not just from a football standpoint, but some of the other talents and skills that they had just blew my mind away. And I wasn't an all-star, and it just amazed me from one kid to the next of how successful these kids were going to be with some of the talents and skills that they had.
Coach, I want to thank you again for coming on and the insight that you've given us tonight. And again, like Matt said, congratulate you guys on a great year. And I hope we see you on the field at some point this year, because that means that we've made it pretty far if we run into you guys. So hopefully 2023 we find our squads on the field together again. Hopefully not in the first round. Hopefully I'm not a 2 seed again, because I don't want to relive that.
You'll be okay. You'll be okay. It'll be fun either way. It would be funny I got to tell a little story about that. I don't know if you know this, but for the last couple years since that time, when there's been a playoff victory or something, someone always shows up with a big crate of cupcakes. And of course, you'd think they would be red and white frosting, but they're always purple and white. And do you know this story?
I do, because one of our managers, I don't know if it was a birthday or something, but one of our managers comes to me before the game or something and says hey, I got cupcakes for all the guys after the game. And I'm like, all right, okay, I don't really care one way or another whether there's cupcakes or not. But then, so we lost, and obviously nobody wants a cupcake after a loss. So she went and gave them to the whole Monroe team because she was mad at our guys for not eating them.
So I had just come down from the radio booth. And of course we had ordered, you did a good job directing us to get pizza and other things, and people had brought food. And then there was all these cupcakes, and I don't know where they got them, but they were awesome. The frosting was, they weren't cheapo cupcakes. They were really good. And I'm like, Well, someone must have went down to the store. Of course, they're purple because we're in Alaska. And they're like, no, no, no. The cheerleaders or the managers, they brought them over. They said, oh, those guys are just over there crying and they won't eat these. So we might have, you guys just take them. And our guys loved them. We just mowed those down. So now that there was a couple guys, seniors this year, where we had beaten, I think we had beaten Whitnall last year, and might have been a level 2. Yeah, level 2 or level 3. I don't remember what it was, but we were at Whitnall and we beat them. And my wife shows up with this huge crate of cupcakes and they're purple. And she says, yeah, I went to Alaska. And then we got, you know how kids are. They're just, really? You guys got these from Alaska? So there was like a year that went by where these a little bit more naive guys really thought that we were going to Alaska and buying these cupcakes, predicting that we would win the next playoff game. So we finally had to break it to them this year that we never did get those from there. The only time they really were from Alaska was when we were actually there. But
oh man, that's funny
all of our
hearing it from that side.
all of our banquets, purple cupcakes. Gosh, everyone knows the story.
I don't know if I should be embarrassed or what. It's just kind of funny though.
Well, it was funny that it was a girl, I believe, came over and told them.
Yeah, she was a firecracker. She's a firecracker.
So the hell with them. You guys just eat these cupcakes.
She was so mad at us because the guys didn't want cupcakes, but like prior to this year, that was like the best team that we had, like with the most potential. And to lose, obviously anybody, when you lose when you're a 2 seed, it's not a good experience. So she was really ticked off, and she was kind of a firecracker as is. She had a little bit of spunk to her, a little bit of attitude. So yeah, she was pretty mad, and she went on some rants, and she never helped us again.
Well, I hope she gets over it, but we've really had quite a time with it. It's probably going to be a long-standing tradition here. Purple cupcakes.
Great. I'm glad we could contribute to the run.
And those guys weren't even, they had to be freshmen. And those guys weren't even main people involved in the game. The ones that we have been tricking ever since. So funny.
That's funny. I got tears in my eyes laughing at that story because I've never heard it from that side of it. But Coach, thanks again for coming on. We appreciate it. Thanks for taking time out of your Tuesday night to jump on and record with us. This has been a blast.
All right. Thanks, guys. This has been fun. We got to get a studio. We need to amp this up a little bit, maybe network time or something.
We'll talk to McAfee and see if we can borrow it at night when he's off the air.
Perfect. I'll bring the cigars.
Thanks again for joining us on this week's episode of the Fall Guys podcast. Please tune in next week as we continue to document the stories from those who have shaped the Wisconsin football community.